Hello everyone, today in this video we will fight against the atmospheric character of our world around us, and this time we will try to answer the question, very difficult question, nowadays very politically correct, morons do not want to ask, why some nations, some groups of people, civilizations made technological and moral progress and some of them didn't. Question is actually not so simple, but I think I have found a sort of answer. Of course, not the only one, but I think main one. But let's start from the beginning. I really don't like when people say, like African countries, Muslim countries, or Southeast Asia countries, they need to go through Reformation, later 30 Years' War, later French Revolution equivalent, and they will be like us. It's really ahistorical, it's really irresponsible, and it's really dangerous simplification. Because these civilizations develop in a different way, and it's not always so easy when you study the history that, for instance, French Revolution was inevitable, like leftist thinkers and historians tend to present it. So we have so many factors and so many differences between the civilizations that such simplifications are simply very dangerous. And the most creepy and scary thing is that such way of simplified thinking based on simple extrapolation of European and Northern American history onto other civilizations really is also present in the minds of politicians, philosophers, people of business, in short, decision makers in the European and Northern American countries. It's really scary that this simplified thinking, very dangerous one, is so widely present. We should see that the main development of civilization in terms of technology and science, morality, came from Greece and Rome and also China. We cannot deny it that ancient China and their achievements can be comparable easily to Greece and Rome achievements. And we have to say that southern nations, mainly African nations, but not only, have even today problems with catching up technologically, especially to their Western and now after recreation and acceptance of technology, maybe in a not creative way but really reproductive way. Also, they have problems with catching up with modern China. Why? I will tell it to you in the further part of this video. After antiquity, we go to medieval times. In medieval times, mainly morality and mentality spread by Catholic Church can be expressed in two Latin words, ora et labora. It means pray and work. So we see that even despite such a great collapse that happened after the collapse of Western Roman Empire in the European territories, still values that were important for Greece and Rome, especially value of work, prevailed. And in medieval times, maybe it took long, but societies derived from Germanic kingdoms, later Slavs and others, were able to catch up and elevate their level thanks to the this rule that was introduced by monks and priests into life of people: pray and work. So we see that work was the very important factor. Another important factor was that, and here we see it expressed by the universities, very quickly established universities, that there in these universities, of course, theology was and religion was very important part of life of these people, like everywhere. But there was one important difference. They were looking for the knowledge, not nirvana, not wisdom. Some of them were also looking for this, but it was not the main trend. But in these universities, people were looking and accumulating knowledge. So combination of work and knowledge seems to be crucial. Because in China, of course, Chinese also valued work. that's why they made progress, and till the times more or less of Song dynasty, 10th 11th century AD, they valued knowledge. But after this time, bad thing happened, and Mandarin age, so the class of the officials that were in practice ruling the Chinese state, took over, and they suppressed the merchants, suppressed the people from the cities economically very much, and they did what officials are really good at, blocked any initiatives they didn't understand and they were afraid of, and Chinese creativity and work was directed into pointless jobs like calligraphy and looking for perfection. Chinese would call it looking for harmony. Okay, so this is how we see it. In Muslim world, we had, of course, golden Islamic period for Islamic science from more or less 9th century till 13th century, and a lot of great things were discovered and described, but we need to take into account that people who were doing these discoveries were mainly of different origin from the Islamized nations like Persians, Tajik, Greeks, Jews, whoever, but it doesn't matter so much because they were part of the Islamic civilization. But there is another thing that very often we found in the chronics that Islamic scholars from the Golden Era were very often accused by their colleagues that they don't know Quran really well, that they do not read it so regularly as they should, as God-fearing people. So we see that they were dedicating more time for looking for knowledge, not for looking for wisdom, maybe a little bit, but not so much, and not so much they dedicated the time for looking for the path to the Lord. But we now see that after 13th century, when Abbasid Caliphate Baghdad utterly collapsed and Sultan regimes took power, first Kipchaks, Mamluks, and later Ottomans, we see that main intellectual effort in the Muslim countries was since that time focused on the looking for the path to the Lord. So they were not accumulating much knowledge from that time, and this stopped their development. We see that there is also another problem, like we have now Gulf countries that, thanks to the excavation of oil since 1950s, especially since 1970s, they became extremely rich. But we don't see much of scientific progress from these countries. I think I found the answer because the mentality there is that work is for someone from lower layers, like slaves, like now, because slavery was abandoned in 1960s in the last of these countries. So the migrant expat workers, but people of higher values, of a proper, let's say, way of thinking, proper faith, are only for the higher purposes that they define as following the path to the Lord. So we see that value of work and knowledge, of work and accumulating knowledge, I'd say, it's still not yet on its place. Maybe one day it will be there, no one knows. And this is how I see. And now we see that civilizations originated, according to the qualification of great Polish civilization scholar Felix Konieczny, people originated from Byzantine and Latin civilization actually value work and accumulation of knowledge very much, and especially in Byzantine Empire, because we see that Suda, famous Byzantine encyclopedia, later Byzantine traditions in Germany, Prussia, perfect Germans, encyclopedias, dictionaries, and so on. So we see that people originated from these civilizations or raised according to the rules and values of this civilization, make incredible progress and develop knowledge. But the problem is that now socialism that was born more or less with Communistic Manifesto 1848 and slowly infiltrated the mentality and morality of people from these civilizations that developed, and not only, unfortunately, it went far beyond. We see that work is no longer the value on its own. So ora et labora is not the motto of life of these people. So pray and work in Latin, as I mentioned before, and now these civilizations are collapsing. There is also, coming back to Muslim civilizations, that if not some problems they have, I still need to study and work on it to understand it better, they could really catch up quickly with technology. But there is a book, Arabs in History, by Bernard Lewis, small but very important book, in which I found very important fragment where this famous, now deceased, Islamic scholar of with British passport and Jewish origin claimed a very important thing, that even in the classical period of Islamic states, where this booming development of science and culture was observed, the word for the Muslim person was sort of, in some sense, atomized. That, for instance, there were craftsmen, they were sailors, they were workers, they were soldiers, they were servants, they were slaves, and so on, and everything was a part of the society. But for them, for majority of them within their thinking, everything worked separately. They didn't see it as a complex structure that consists of these elements, and these elements work together, keeping it working. Somehow, from my experience with some of my students, I can say I see the same. That's why when I read this fragment about atomized perception of the world, I understood what's the problem I have faced. And this is also maybe another reason why, after great development of science, Islamic countries simply reach stagnation and later regress in this sense. I do not have definitive answer for the question I asked in the beginning of this video, why some nations made technological and moral progress, and some nations made it partially, some nations didn't make it at all. But I think that the core for this progress is respect to gaining knowledge, real knowledge, not wisdom or nirvana, and respecting work and practicing it on your own. So these are the two main points. I know that this is not the definitive answer, but I think it's a good starting point for further investigation. Let's say I see it like this, that we should really try to work on that. And coming back to Africa, we see that African civilization is based mainly on the joy and simple living. They are not used to work, and they are not used to accumulate much knowledge, also because of the climate that doesn't change in the region they come from. It's all the time the same. They adapted to simple life without any further complications, so also without any heavy work. So they don't like it, they are not used to that, they are not educated in this way. Of course it can change, but one needs many generations. This is how I see. So let's to sum up, I need to say work and accumulation of knowledge, in my opinion, are the main factors for the real technological and moral progress of civilization. And I opened this discussion, and I'm really happy to read your comments and discuss this intriguing problem further. Take care and have a nice day. Bye.